Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
And you're very welcome along to Friday Night Racing here on Off the Ball, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Check out hri.ie, or of course you can follow the Twitter account at HRI Racing, and the hashtag is every racing moment. Johnny Ward is with us as ever. Johnny, how are you doing?
Not bad, Ger. It's lockdown still going on here, but at least the weather is beautiful and, getting a little bit used to it. I don't know how you're surviving it. You've obviously kids. Is that a good or a bad thing in a lockdown?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're on your own, you only have yourself to worry about. But I guess maybe having a purpose in life isn't the worst thing for some of us at this moment either. I'm delighted to say our guest this week is Robbie Power. Robbie, how are you getting on?
Good, Ger. How are you?
I'm good. How was lockdown for you?
Yeah, look, it's getting pretty boring now at this stage. They're trying to drag jobs out. The garden looks immaculate. There's not a blade of grass out of place, but just trying to get on with things and get jobs done. Whatever has to be done, get them done.
As somebody who is an athlete, do you have to work on your fitness at the moment? Are you just parking on that and thinking, a few days back on the actual racing circuit will get you back to the level you need to be at?
I don't think there's any point at the moment worrying about fitness. I haven't been riding out since the last day I rode on the race course in Clonmel, which is just over a fortnight ago. So we've no set day to come back yet. So I can't see racing starting back. Jump racing definitely until June time. So until you get a set time as to when you're going to start back, obviously you won't get your fitness go too mad. But there's no real point in worrying too much about it at the moment anyway.
Some of the sports are actually just taking this opportunity it's their off season essentially, knowing that they're going to be fully back into it. Not much of an off season when you can't go off and let the body rest on a beach or whatever. But are you essentially doing the same thing? You kind of shut down the whole notion of being an athlete at the moment in preparation for when it comes back, going back full tilt?
Yeah, basically that's all you can do. Wait for a date when we do get a time to go. But as I say, there's no real point in worrying about your fitness too much at the moment. And it is good, especially for some of the older lads in the wear room, including myself, to let your body have a bit of downtime, because there's been plenty of injuries over the years. And I can't remember the last time I had a break that, I suppose this is an enforced break, but the last time I've had a break, it's been always through injuries. So it's nice to have a bit of a break when you are physically 100% and let the body unwind in its own way.
That's the thing, Robbie, as well, isn't it? That people don't maybe get about racing, that there isn't any proper break at all. It's literally all year round, pretty much bar Christmas Day. And you have to be injured because you're not going to, even in the summer, you're not going to just go off for 2 weeks and come back because you'll have missed rides and all that. Yeah,
exactly. You can't bugger off there in the middle of summer. And if you do, you're going to miss out on a few winners and plenty of rides. There's a 10-day break at the end of June, which is really... you can't really enjoy either, because if you go away and let yourself go for a week, then you've got to kill yourself when you come back trying to get your weight back down. So I suppose if there is one good thing for a jockey to come out of this, it's that you give your body a chance to let all the muscles and recover properly.
Do the jockeys have like kind of do the jockeys have like WhatsApp groups where you're chatting away to each other, kind of comparing your lockdown situations at the moment?
A little bit, yeah. There's plenty of Snapchat going on now of lads doing different things behind in their own houses and all that sort of thing, out in their front lawns, making aegis of themselves. But there's plenty going on.
Are they all sharing the meals that they're allowed to eat now for the couple of weeks, knowing full well that it's actually going to be plenty of time before they're back racing? You can basically eat like a pig for a few weeks here.
You can, yeah, you can. I'm probably lucky enough. My father always said you can't fatten a thoroughbred, so at the moment I haven't put on too much weight anyway.
It must be a real concern for some of the jockeys.
Yeah, look, I'm lucky enough. My weight is fairly stable, but there are plenty of lads, and especially the flat lads. They're coming into the start of their season as well, and the season hasn't started yet, and they're hoping to get started in the next few weeks. When that'll happen, I don't know, but they've got to keep a good eye on their weight, because when they do start, they're going to start full tilt.
Robbie, will you talk to us about your body? Are you you're at a stage of your career where people obviously keep asking you, Jesus, this is an Indian summer you're having where there's been incredible success over the last couple of years. At this time of the year, how sore are you having been in, normal season? This time last year, say, for example, what kind of state was the body in before that 10-day break in June?
Yeah, this time last year, it wasn't great. I had fractured 2 vertebrae in my back just before Cheltenham, rode through Cheltenham with them, then didn't ride from Cheltenham till Fairyhouse, and then didn't ride from Fairyhouse to Punchestown because of the vertebrae in my back. But luckily enough, it was I got through them the 2 big weeks, and you put up with it this time of year because you're looking forward to, like, this is Easter week, and we're generally looking forward to Fairyhouse, so looking forward to a Boyle Sports Irish Grand National or something like that is gets you through, and then your Punchestown to follow on a couple of weeks later. But this year it's a bit different. You don't have them, so yeah. Look, this year, touch wood, I had a good year with falls and injuries and things like that there. So the body's in pretty good shape, but at the same time, it's still no harm for it to have a rest.
How would you reflect on Cheltenham in general? I know you must have been delighted with Lost in Translation, but maybe it was I suppose a tough enough week for you.
Disaster.
Lost in Translation. You put it a lot better than I did.
Yeah, Lost in Translation was very, very good, and he ran a cracker in the Gold Cup, and I still think he's better than that. And I think the way Tizard's horses ran all week, for him to come out and run like he did in the Gold Cup, just goes to show what a class horse I think he is. And I definitely think he's up to winning the Gold Cup.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, like, I think a lot of people I spoke to were at that stage of the week. They were just put off backing Tizard horses. Yet he came out and ran as well as he did, considering he also went into the race on the back of a pretty bad prep as well.
Yeah, he had an ordinary preparation for the race, and for him to run the way he did was huge credit to the horse. And I definitely think he has the ability, and I do think he stays the trip. A lot of people said he didn't get up the hill. He's only beaten the length and a quarter. So I don't think that's an issue, and I think with a better run next year, better preparation, I would imagine his campaign, I know it was this year, but things didn't quite go to plan, but next year everything will be geared towards going to the Gold Cup, and he'll definitely go there fresh as well, because he's a much better horse when he's fresh.
Could you put it down to Anthony, the Tizard performance that week? Was it just one of them things?
Just one of them things. A good few of the horses were reported to be quite sick after Cheltenham. After their runs, they all appeared well, and I went over there the Friday before Cheltenham to school a few of them, and of all the ones I schooled, I think Fiddler on the Roof actually felt unbelievably well. I was really looking forward to him in the Supreme, and then he came out and ran like he did. But that's animals. They're livestock, they're animals, and they can't tell you. They just, obviously, things didn't go right. They picked up some sort of virus in them few days on the build up to the festival, and it was just unfortunate because they all, if you look back at the road, they actually kind of all ran the same kind of race. At top of the hill, they were sort of there with a bit of a chance, and then by the time they got halfway down the hill, they were gone.
It's remarkable as well you mentioned Fiddler on the Roof, because I was speaking to you about him at the HRI Awards, and obviously a horse that just had so much going for him going into the race, and I guess you're not losing any faith going forward when he goes chasing and so on.
No, definitely not. He's going to make it into a lovely chase for next season. I'm not going to lose faith in any of the horses. The way they ran in Cheltenham, most of them ran too true, including Fiddler on the Roof. The big breakaway again, I think huge credit to him to finish fourth in the Neptune was a massive run, because he never at any stage in the race felt like the horse had ridden them 2 starts before that. So I know it was a step up in class and all that, but at no stage in the race did he feel like the horse had won on in Newbury or Chepstow. So I think massive credit to him to finish where he did. So looking forward. I think the 3 of them, Lost in Translation, Fiddler on the Roof, and the big breakaway, are 3 exciting horses for next season. Did
it affect the boss man the way the week was going?
No, in fairness to both Colin and Joe, they kind of take these things well, and it's obviously when there's so much hype and build up to a week, it's disappointing when it starts off that bad. But as Colin said after the Gold Cup, what had been a disaster of a week is actually finished on a good note. So you always have to take the positives out of this game. If you let it get to you too much, you'd never get on it.
In a situation like that where a week hasn't gone very well, obviously the joy of being involved in a sport like racing is you can get back on next week and back into races, and you hope the horses come well for the very end of the season. That's obviously been gone now. Does that mean Cheltenham lingers a bit longer for everybody involved with those horses? Do they carry that disappointment a bit longer, or again, just that's the nature of the sport, you have to get on with it straight away?
I think that depends on the mentality of the person, really. For me, no, I'd forgotten about Cheltenham when I touched down in Dublin Airport on Friday night. When we were kids growing up, if we had a bad weekend at a show or something with the ponies, my father would say, forget about what happened that weekend and move on. And when I landed in Dublin Airport, Cheltenham was forgotten about. I rode a winner in Navan behind closed doors on the Saturday, and I think I rode 4 or 5 winners in the week after Cheltenham, so on the build up to the shutdown. So yeah, look, you've got to forget about it and move on. As I say, I was racing in Navan that Saturday, and that horse winning the maiden hurdle could have been, that was his Supreme Novices, if you know what I mean, for the year. So it's very important that you leave behind you and move on.
And were you able to do that when your dad told you that the first time? Because, kids notoriously take defeats badly. Were you good at learning how to move on quickly from show jumping?
We'd no choice, really. That's the way it was. He said from a very young age, it was drilled into us when we were riding 12-2 ponies. So you're under 12 years of age, and it was drilled into us that if we had a bad week, we moved on. So you'd be driving out the gate, you might be going a mile or two up the road from the show, and you'd say, Daddy, what about that mistake? We're forgetting about that now. You know the mistake you made, and that was it. You move on. So I think it was a great piece of advice to be drilled into us at a young age. I think for a lot of reasons, carrying problems with you down the line is not good.
How would you compare that, I'd say, to pony rising or a different type of upbringing for a jockey? Because yours was obviously quite unique and, a path that others have trodden as well, I suppose, to become a jockey.
Yeah, I don't think there's any set way, the right way as an upbringing to which way is the right way to become a jockey. There's pony racing, obviously Paul Carberry, Barry Geraghty would be 2 prime examples of that. I was show jumping, John Frankham show jumped as well. He won a European silver medal as well. Harry Skelton has done a lot of show jumping. So there's different routes, but I think it's the people behind the person is the most important thing. Like Ruby didn't compete at any major pony racing level. He didn't compete at any major show jumping or a 3-day eventing level, but he had the right people behind him, and his father Ted and his mother Helen, and that sort of people helped him. So he had the right grounding for the sport. Same as I had with my mother and father, and same as Paul Carberry and Barry Geraghty and Harry Skelton, everyone I've mentioned, they've all had the right grounding behind them. The people behind them are the most important.
In terms of presenting a horse to an obstacle, is the same thing? Are there things that you learn from both to, I suppose, bestow on the other, or did it help you along the way?
I have to learn a lot of it along the way as well. The big difference from show jumping to racing was obviously the different speeds and how much quicker a fence would come at you racing. But I think in general, again, the more you jump, the better you become at it, the more practice you get at it. So having the basics and then learning yourself as you go along. I think that the most important thing about racing is knowing a horse's capabilities. If you don't know what a horse can and can't do, well, maybe you shouldn't ride that horse. You've got to know what a horse's capabilities are.
That's interesting, though. Sometimes there must be a race meeting where you get on a horse quite late and you've seen it run before, but maybe you've never actually ridden the horse itself. Like, how quickly can you assess what the horse is capable of, and how do you do that? Is it just watching videos? Is it from talking to other jockeys who might have, or work riders, or the trainer? Like, how do you acquire that information about a horse that you haven't been on?
A bit of both. You'd watch a video, 2 or 3 videos of a horse's race the night before, and say to yourself, "Oh yeah, maybe he can't stand off. Have to let him go in short." And the feel a horse would give you on the way to the start as well, the length of his stride and all them sort of things would be an indication as to what his capacities are, and then materializes, you'd know what he can and can't do if he's going in short and popping away and do it.
Just having a bit of issues there with that line. We might get that back in a second. I just want to, we'll come back to that with Robbie, because there's lots of other good stuff to get into as well. I just want to tell everybody that the racing industry have come together to support Horse Racing Ireland's online auction to raise money for the Feed the Heroes charity. You might have seen this. It's a great initiative that is actually donating food to people who are working on the front line. You can donate €4, which is the price of a race card, or you can bid on some great auction items on app.galabid.com/frontline. And it's also been promoted on all of HRI's social media channels as well. So this is the racing industry getting behind the Feed the Heroes charity. You can donate €4. It's the price of a race card, as I said, or you can bid on some great auction items. app.galabid.com/frontline. And I think we can all agree that is a great cause to be getting behind. A reminder too, the Tote Irish Inter-Jockeys Fund now stands at €840 as it receives a boost of €100 in place of our usual weekly bet on Irish racing. The international racing of note for Tote customers this weekend comes from Australia, with 4 Group 1s on the card this Saturday at Randwick. You can bet on and live stream the action on the tote.com. This is Friday Night Racing, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie or follow the new Twitter account at HRI Racing, and the hashtag is every racing moment. We've got Robbie Power on the line this week. Johnny Ward is obviously with us as well. Robbie, you were just talking there about the work that goes into getting on a horse that you don't know. I'm interested in hearing the talk about the pathways in. At what point did you decide that you actually wanted to be a jockey as opposed to a full-time show jumper or somebody working in the show jumping arena?
It was quite late on. I went to the European Young Rider Championships in Hartpury in England in 2000. I was 20, and that was in August of that year. And then I think it was in 2000. And won a Robbie first winner in December 2001. So literally a year after that, I thought financially it was going to be very, very difficult where I get the backing to be an international show jumper. And I didn't want to do it at an ordinary level, so I couldn't see where I was going to get the backing. So I wanted to come home. I was based in England and wanted to come home and try something different. And I always thought, but my father's 6'2", and that there I always thought it'd be too big and heavy to be a jockey. But it was my first love. I always wanted to be a jockey, and when I stood in the scales when I came home, I was 10.5 stone, and I thought, well, I'd easily lose half a stone, and I might give this a go. So that's how I decided. But I was late to start race riding compared to most other people who started at 16. I was 20, rising 21 when I started.
You kind of answered that question maybe for me, but sorry, Jerry, you kind of answered the question, Robbie, but how does it compare financially? What are the, T's and C's of becoming a top-class show jumping rider, and do you need to be at a really elite level to make it pay ultimately?
Yeah, you do. I think a lot of the finances in show jumping are buying and selling young horses, finding a nice horse, bringing them along, producing them, and then selling them on. So there's very few riders, especially ones based in Ireland, that get to ride at 5-star international level. So I wanted to ride at 5-star international level the whole time, and that would have meant to be based probably in Europe or definitely in England anyway. And then when you get them good horses, it's finding someone to keep them for you. So it's a little bit like the smaller national hunt yards when they get a real good Grade 1 horse. Gigginstown, JP, Rich Richie, the big owners are banging on the door trying to get someone to buy them.
Mm-hmm.
When you started at 20, rising 21, did you feel the difference between you and the lads who had the 4 or 5 years of coming through as an apprentice? Because obviously that was how the industry expected people to come through. This was notwithstanding you mentioned John Frankham earlier on, that it was a relatively unusual pathway. So one, you have to have determination. I'm sure that certainly, and the moxie to go and do it, that must have been very attractive to anybody putting on their horses. But other people would have been like, well, I've got a jockey the same age who's actually, has ridden 1,500 times in the meantime while you've been show jumping. Did you personally feel that there was a gap there that you needed to close quite quickly?
So I never felt it, but there probably was. I think at the time I was riding out for Jessica Harrington and Paddy Mullins, and they both had great confidence in me. That I had was lucky with my show jumping background that I had good experience in presenting a horse to a jump, but I had to develop a racing brain. I had no experience from pony racing of how to ride a race or any of them things, so I had to try and develop a racing brain and learn how to ride a race. And I had to learn that fairly quick because there wasn't much time. As you say, there's lads who had probably 1,000 rides or 500 rides under their belt that I had none. So I had to develop that. And back in them days as well, which was a great help for me, there was a lot of schooling races. So I got to ride in probably 7 or 8 rides, 6 or 7 rides every day at schooling races for Jesse, Paddy, and the rest wanted to put me up in a schooling race. So they were a big advantage to me back in them days.
Again, just thinking about it now, if you were coming through that pathway, you'd be able to watch millions and millions of hours of videos. It probably wasn't that easy to get your hands on exactly every single horse that you were going to be on, every race that they've been in. So how do you become a race rider? How do you learn what it is to actually? We talked to Ruby about this one time before, and he talked about his internal clock, and everybody talks about his ability to present horses at the right moment, in terms of like getting them ready to compete at the end of the race. How do you develop that when you haven't had all of that from under eights the whole way through?
Well, I suppose there's no substitute for that than experience, and the more you ride, the better you become at it. I don't think a lot of people are naturally born riders. Paul Carby was probably the most naturally talented rider I ever rode against. But you have to learn to ride a race, and that's only something that comes with practice. Same as anything else in any sport. Match play is key, and that's the most important thing. And the more you ride in races, the better equipped and the more confident you become to deal with different issues. If your plan is to jump out handy in a race, and after going 2 furlongs, you realise your horse is not able to go this fast, it's having the brains to say, right, don't push him out of his comfort zone, because the winning post is always at the end of the race. So it's having enough horse under you to finish the race out to the best of his ability. So they're little things. The more you ride, the more confidence you get, the more you learn these things.
You mentioned Carberry there. You obviously are part of a golden generation. We had Richard Dunwoody on last week, and who was your kind of idol growing up, or was there anyone your style mimicked in any way? Because I know obviously a lot of people would say Carberry was the best, and was Dunwoody one of your heroes growing up?
Yeah, when I was very young, Richard Dunwoody was the one. I jumped onto the armchair of a sofa and bet the dust out of the sofa. I was always wanted to be Richard Dunwoody. He was my hero. As a kid growing up, and probably one of my regrets is that when I didn't ride at 16 or 17 was that I didn't get to ride against Richard Dunwoody. If I had rode when I could have first got a licence out at 16, I would have been able to ride against Dunwoody. And that's probably the only regret I have, that I didn't get a licence out a bit younger. But I've ridden against some phenomenal jockeys. Ruby, as we talked about, but back the Jays, Charlie Swan had a phenomenal racing brain. He was unbelievably good, and Carby as well, Barry Geraghty, Adrian Maguire. My first winner as a professional, I beat Adrian Maguire half a length, that was a great buzz. And yeah, as you say, I've been very lucky to ride against some very, very good jockeys. But Carby, when we all started race riding, and when I started riding out, I tried to ride with my knees an inch above the horse's wither and my arse cocked in the air, but soon realised there was only one Paul Carby and I wasn't going to be able to copy him.
Who was the best?
Different ways. So many of them were so good in so many different ways, but I think probably the one that ticked all the boxes is Ruby. I think Ruby ticked every box. He was the one that brought race riding to a new level.
Did you see the way he finished off? And it was such a contrast to Richard Dunwoody in that Ruby timed it to his own perfection, I suppose, on the racetrack. He did exactly that with Kenboy last year, but Richard Dunwoody wasn't like that at all. And for a lot of people, they don't have that comfort. Is it something you worry about when inevitably it happens? No, I think, look, that's the luxury we'd all like to have, is to retire the way Ruby did it. That would be ideal. But not everybody either has the strength and depth that Ruby had. Ruby knew that week going into Punchestown that this was going to be his last week. He said after, I think if he'd have won the Grand National in Aintree, he would have bowed out on that one. But he had gone into that week, I can't remember what rides he had every day, that he'd win, I think, in the Champion Chase the first day. Then he had Kenboy in the Gold Cup. He'd had something else in the Stayers Hurdle on the Thursday, and he always had the backup of Benny the Do was going to get him out on a Grade 1 winner on the Saturday. So if everything went pear-shaped from Tuesday through to Friday, Benny the Do was probably going to get him out on a Grade 1 winner on the Saturday. So not everyone has that strength and depth and can afford to go out that way. But look, to go out in your own terms, to go out in one piece is the way every jockey wants to retire, and to go out in a winner will be fantastic. Do you feel any better or worse now than when you were, say, in your late 20s? No, I think I definitely don't feel any worse anyway. No, I feel a lot wiser. I've learned an awful lot more over them years, and I think that's, once I can keep the body in good shape and stay in one piece, I think that's the most important thing, and keep riding for as long as I can. It was Harry Rogers always said to me, he says, ride for as long as you can, because when you stop riding, you have to start working. Yeah.
Richard Dunwoody, actually, is funny enough, isn't involved in the sport of racing anymore. He was a pundit for a few years, and then he kind of drifted away from that whenever whoever it was that he was working for lost the rights. And now he lives in Spain and seems completely isolated from the game itself. Can you envisage a future like that, or will you actually always be involved in racing now that you've kind of had that bug from the time when you were a kid and jumping on the couch?
Yeah, no, I'd like to stay involved in the game in some way when I do retire. Racing's been very good to me, and I'd love to stay involved in the game. But I'd have to have an interest to go racing. I don't think I'd go racing just on a day-to-day basis, just for the fun of it. I'd have to have an interest or a reason to go racing. But I would definitely like to stay involved in racing. I don't know what else I'd do. I'd hopefully in my 40s when I do retire. So it's been racing in my life for over 20 years, and I don't know what I'd do outside of racing. So I'd love to stay involved in the game in some way anyway.
Are you dipping your toe into that already? Have you always been doing a little bit of that? And what kind of role would you see yourself having? Like, could you be a trainer? Is that something you could see yourself getting into?
No, I definitely won't go training.
It's mad the amount of people they say, yeah, I might consider it, and the amount of people like you say, no, definitely not.
No, and I've had this discussion a few times with people. I think nowadays training is a young man's game. And years ago, when I started race riding, when I started, if I was going to ride for 15 years, I would have been delighted, because when I started, jockeys were riding until they were 34 or 5, if they were lucky. But with the help of the medical staff now and everything, life for a jockey is so much different. Jockeys take much more care of themselves. They're much more aware of the problems that are out there, and the injuries are better treated nowadays. So the life expectancy of a jockey now is a lot longer. Ruby rode until the eve of his 40th birthday. Paul Carby rode into his 40s, Barry's in his 40s, Richard Johnson, the list goes on. A lot of jockeys riding into their 40s now over jumps, which when I started was unheard of. There was the odd exception, but very, very few. And you look at all the top trainers nowadays. Gordon Elliott started in his 20s, Joseph O'Brien, Dan Skelton in England, Ollie Murphy, all the top trainers coming up now are all young lads, and if I was to start training if I was 44 or 5 and I started training, you're going to be training against the likes of Joseph O'Brien and them who are younger than you and still have 10 or 15 years training under their belt.
That's very interesting, Robbie. I haven't really necessarily heard that before. You can nearly see parallels with younger football managers, but probably haven't heard much about the fact that the life expectancy, as you put it, of a jockey, that maybe you are just kind of treating yourselves better, and you know the do's and the do-nots, and that I always thought if you're riding into your 40s, you're probably too old, but I suppose you obviously think that there is... the jockey starting off now could ride well into his 40s.
Of course he could, yeah, once he maintains himself the way that jockeys are doing it now and looking after their bodies the way that jockeys are now. It's so much easier now compared to when I started, how jockeys look after themselves. You're much more aware of how to look after your body compared to when I started. So if you do the job right, you can ride for an awful long time. And as I say, I hope to continue well into my 40s. I'm 38 now, and I'd love to continue into my 40s. But as you say, then again, it's national hunt racing, and you don't know what the next day holds. But I'd love to continue. As long as my body's able, I'll keep going.
And are you diet and strength and conditioning obsessed? Like, is that something that over the last number of years you're like, okay, if I do want to get to that point, then I'm going to have to make sure that every single morsel of food, I know exactly what's in it, and I need to do this amount of stretches and this amount of warm-ups and cool-downs? And like, are you obsessed about that kind of stuff, or is it like, look, I'm going to take my body as far as it gives me?
That's exactly the way it is. I take my body as far as it gives me. I know I have to do a lot more exercises now with my back and things like that from the injuries I had over the last few years. And I've been up in Aintree with Enda King a good few times, and all these things are massive helps. Once I stay in the swimming pool and stay doing these stretches, that's all my body needs. I don't need any more. My diet is very stable. My weight is very stable. I haven't done below 10 stone 3 for, I'd say, probably 9 or 10 years, and I think my body's felt the benefit of that because I'm not in saunas the whole time. And I could do a lot lighter than 10 stone 3, but I don't. I want to say I could do a lot lighter. I could maybe do 10 stone 1 for an Irish Grand National or an English National if I wanted to, but I don't. I've that discipline now that I won't go below 10 stone 3, and I think my body has reaped the rewards of that because I'm not in saunas I can't remember the last time I got in a sauna. I've had a hot bath, I'd say twice this year to lose a pound, but that's about it.
Is that advice you give to younger jockeys?
Oh, definitely, yeah. The less time you spend in saunas, the much more likely your weight is to become stable. Because when you're in a sauna sweating or a hot bath sweating, you're only taking fluids out. As soon as you take them out full of water, you're putting that fluid back on. And if you lose 2, you're guaranteed to put 4 back on. So I've been through all that. I've done it all. And my weight, I often rode a 10 stone 2 or 10 stone 3 on a Sunday, and Monday morning it could be 10, 12.
Did you improve actually subsequent to giving that up more or less?
Probably, yeah. I think because mentally you weren't having to worry about losing weight. Definitely does help when weight's not an issue for you. It definitely does help, and if you can manage to stay out of saunas and off hot baths and get a stable diet and a stable weight, it's a huge advantage to you going forward, because that's one thing off your mind. It's enough to worry about when you're worrying about what horses to ride and how to ride them and all them sort of things, without having to worry about your weight as well.
Forgive my ignorance here, but if you were saying that you're only going to, if that's going to be your way to 10 stone 3, does that mean there are times when people ring you up and would like to book you for a ride, and you're like, I'm not going to be able to make that weight, so I can't take that ride?
Yeah. There are times when I've been asked to do below 10 stone 3 and I couldn't do the weight. I'd say, no, I can't do that weight. If the horse had 10-2 or 10-1, I'd say, I'll do 10-3 of it, which would be £1 or £2 overweight. I won a valuable mare's handicap hurdle, the first run of the Dublin Racing Festival on a mare at Jessie's. She had 10 stone 1, and Jessie said just do 10-3 and she'd be fine. And she won. So that's it. I've set the ball out there. 10 stone 3 is my bottom weight, and that's the way it's been for the last definitely 8 years anyway.
I do find it intriguing. I think, sorry, Jared, that it's something of an outlier racing that if you play football, or if you play hurling, or if you're a gymnast, or if you're whatever, a rugby player, you have to be produced in absolute peak shape to suit that performance. Yet in racing, some jockeys will go out there basically wasted, having not eaten, and still think they can perform to 100%. And it never made sense to me in that you're not preparing yourself properly for the race, because you even if it's only 5 minutes long, how can you perform to your peak level if you've wasted yourself?
There's 2 ways of looking at it. I suppose there's your way of looking at that you've wasted so much, but I always was the mentality that if I've gone through this much torture to lose this much weight, I'm not doing it for nothing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of jockeys are through that mentality as well. One, they're doing it because they think it's worth the while, and it's only for a short period of time. I don't think I ever got bet on a horse because I was dehydrated or I was wrecked from wasting. I don't think that ever happened to me. But I think because I raised my weight a couple of pounds, I think my body has felt the benefit of it in the long term.
My question was going to be, you have to reach a stage in your career where you're confident enough to be able to say to big trainers, no, I'm not doing 10 stone 1, or I'm not doing 10 stone, I'm not doing that horse for you. Like, you needed to have the success behind you and the self-confidence, but also to know that it was the right thing. Were they difficult conversations the first time you made that call, or did everybody just go, fair enough, I respect your decision to do it?
I think most trainers accept when you tell them you can't do a weight, they accept that. Once they don't see you doing that weight a week later because you fancied the horse a week later when you fancied their horse. I think when you set yourself a weight, that's it. You don't go below it for no circumstances. I missed a winner last year at the Dublin Racing Festival on Whisper in the Breeze. It was a 100 grand handicap and he 10 stone 1. And Jesse wanted him to carry 10 stone 1, so Paddy Kennedy rode him, and I sat it out. But that's the way it is, You can't do the weight, so don't take the ride, is the old saying.
I also suppose that you probably were happier to eschew these rides because you have ridden a lot of Grade 1 horses over the last 2 or 3 years. And did that change your mindset towards, lesser rides and handicaps or whatever it is, wasting away? Because you knew you're never far away from a good Grade 1 ride the last few years.
Yeah, but I made this decision long before I ever had good Grade 1 horses to ride. So I just thought I couldn't keep going and losing weight and doing all that. Now, there's a lot of lads do it every day in, day out. They're losing weight. Joseph O'Brien was doing it. Davy Russell does it a lot at the moment. He's always having battles with his weight. Andrew McNamara, when he was riding, was another one. Donica. There's lots of lads get up. John Cullen, when he was riding, lots of lads get up. They have to lose weight every day. So that's just the way it is.
Can I ask you about the point we made earlier on about jockeys riding into their late 30s and early 40s. The benefit of that seems to be, famously, AC Milan had the Maldini project. Munster also took it, where they've put an increased value on experience. It was the only thing, as you said, money can't buy. You can buy the best players in the world for whatever sport it is, and you put them all together, but you can't cheat the level of experience. Is that why we're seeing more and more riders who are older winning? Is it a simple thing that you just become a better rider the more you ride?
Yeah, I definitely think that's, as you said, you hit the head on the head, you can't beat experience. So I think definitely the more you ride and the longer you ride, provided your career has gone the right way, then yeah, definitely there's an old head on young shoulders. The same, well, in racing, it's an old head on old shoulders. You need to be you need to have plenty of experience on the belt. But there's a lot of lads riding. Good lads riding, like Jack Kennedy, for example, is an old head on young shoulders. So he's gained plenty of experience, and he is a very, very good rider, and has the ability to be champion jockey someday. You know, he's a top class rider.
We had Barry Garrity on a couple of weeks ago, and he was even talking about how 3 years ago he made a mistake in a race at Cheltenham that he rectified 2 years ago, and he used the same strategy this year. And obviously he's one of the best riders that this country has ever produced, but he's still learning, and he's still getting to the point where he's analysing things, and he feels he's becoming a better jockey. Do you feel you've still got a way to go, that you haven't actually reached your peak yet?
Yeah, I don't know whether, I don't think you ever like to think you've reached your peak as a jockey. You always believe there's better days ahead, and I'd like to think and hope there are still better days ahead. But as you say, it's them experiences where you know you made a mistake in Cheltenham or wherever it may be, and learning from it, that down the line you can recall that experience again. You know, them things are invaluable.
Robbie, you've obviously told us the story of your eye injury on the show before. How is the eye now? Is it totally fine? Does it bother you in day-to-day life at all?
No, not in day-to-day life. It never did. In day-to-day life, it never did. It is improving as time goes by. I still ride with the lens and the goggles, and that will always be the case. But yeah, no, as I say, in day-to-day life, it doesn't affect me at all. And thankfully, I have that lens and my goggle that a lot of people maintain I should have put in my goggles years ago. But it's working great. And as I say, I'll always ride with the lens and the goggle. But riding out at home now, I don't use the goggles. I don't need to. It's just when you get into the adrenaline of a race and everything builds up that I can get double vision. I pulled the goggles down one day last year, going to the second last in extra, just because the goggles were getting very fogged up, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll see what the double vision is like. And when I did pull the goggles down, I still had it. So no, I'll stick with the goggles now for the rest of my career now. Did
the horse win?
He did. He did. It didn't matter though at that stage whether I had goggles or not. All I had to do was stay on them.
That was important. All right. When an incident like that happens in your career, and there is a risk that your career is going to be over, does that make everything afterwards? Is that an awakening for you, that this is, like, every race now really matters? And not that it doesn't, because jockeys obviously are followed around by an ambulance every day they go to work. So I presume there's a sense of wokeness anyway. But when something like that happens, does it change your perspective?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I suppose you realise how lucky you are to be back. I think that was the biggest worry with that injury, was that we couldn't find the problem, and I had been to 2 or 3 different doctors before we actually found out what the problem was. So it was the uncertainty of whether I'd be able to ride again or not was the problem. But yeah, it was when we found that the goggle that worked and the lens that worked in the goggle, and I was able to ride again, that was relief that I was back, and I was very, very relieved to be back race riding. So that was a huge boost. And then for what happened that year, as the year prevailed after, was unbelievable. So it was just lucky to be back, and that could have been so much worse, and you might never have been back,
Yeah.
What are your horses you're looking forward to for Jessica? Kind of any of her flat horses take your eye as well? I know the flat is hopefully not too far away.
Yeah, I know that but Jessie and all the team down there, Shane Foley especially, they're all praying that these Guineas and Oakses and all this especially get the go ahead, because she had a fantastic bunch of 2-year-old fillies last year, and fingers crossed, the Irish English Oaks and all these things, and Guineas get the go ahead, because I think Jessie can add another classic to her CV this year with the bunch of fillies she's got. She's got a really nice bunch of fillies.
I had one last question for you. It's obviously Easter weekend. We're supposed to be looking forward to the Boys Sports Irish Grand National. Reading your column, you were kind of suggesting that maybe that is a traditional day for it in the calendar, and that maybe the best thing to do is to roll it over to next year. There's some talk that there might be some room for it in the calendar later on in the year. What's your take here?
I don't think there's any room for the Irish Grand National in the autumn or early winter. It's since 1990, when I went to Fairyhouse to watch Desert Orchid win the Irish Grand National, I've been going to it as a spectator or a jockey ever since. And it is run on Easter Monday without exception, and that's the way it should stay. You know, it's bitterly disappointing for everybody that we've lost the Irish Grand National this year. It would have been the 150th running of it. And there's no one more disappointed than Fairyhouse, the local people around County Meath, and Boyle Sports, who sponsor her. Everyone's hugely disappointed to lose the race, but it's the old saying, it's gone, let it go. So have it back next year on Easter Monday, and have the 150th running of the Irish Grand National in Fairyhouse 2021 on Easter Monday, where it should be. There's a busy calendar in the autumn of the year and early winter. There's talk of they might put it on the weekend when the Bar 1 race and Hatton's Grace, Drinmore. The Irish Grand National is a feature race in itself. It doesn't need to fit in with other races. There's a 3 mile 5 chase on that day called the Porterstown Chase, which locally is a quite prestigious race to win anyway. So if HRI and them feel that they want to have a big money race, another big money race in early winter, put more money into the Porterstown Chase, leave it as it is. But I think the 150th run of the Irish Grand National should be on Easter Monday 2021.
All right, Robbie, you've been great with your time. How are you getting through lockdown? Are you watching any box sets? Have you got any recommendations for us?
Not really. I've been watching bits of racing in the UK, or racing TV as it is now, and they're showing back on Cheltenham festivals, and got a great buzz out of watching back on Grand National. So I had a good watch of the 2007 Grand National recently, so it was great.
I think you might have a future in our interior design anyway, with that lovely forest green you have there on the wall, and the nice little compliment of the curtains and all that as well. Nice work on your behalf.
I'd love to claim that, but that's all my wife. I can see by your background, Johnny, you don't have a wife.
By the end of this now, who knows what's going to happen? A lot of people are going to get very bored over the next few weeks in lockdown. Robbie, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Johnny, as ever, your Jen, thank you for joining us as well here on Friday Night Racing. That is your lot on Friday Night Racing this week. We're with you every Friday afternoon. We stream at 3 o'clock on all of our social channels, so offtheball.com is the best place to get it, but you can also get us on youtube.com/offtheball. And then every Friday evening, we're live on the radio on News Talk as well on the Off the Ball show from 7 o'clock to 9. And that was Robbie Power, our guest this week. A reminder, Friday Night Racing on Off the Ball is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie or follow the Twitter account at HRI Racing. See you next week.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.